Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Victory Road's World Cup of VGC. We're here. I'm Stefan. With me is Kana, and we're here for the second match of the first broadcast day of the group stage. How are you feeling today, Kana?
I'm feeling quite good. It's nice to be back on the camera with a bit of a better connection than last time, so hopefully no errors there. But what is even more fun is to see some of these top teams battling it out and seeing who can get through to that next round and have a shot at the money as well.
Yeah, this is going to be a really cool one. We've got Canada's representative Matt Tidd against Chile's representative Sebastián Parra, two incredibly strong players. Sebastián Parra already recording 2 wins in this World Cup. I'm not sure what Matt's results are so far, but still, always a very strong player. In fact, I think we have the player accomplishments potentially to look at. But I think first we're going to have a look at the overall matchup between Canada and Chile. See how that's going. See if any of the matches have actually concluded yet, and how much is on the line in this specific match.
Yeah, well, both of these teams did have to come through the original stage, the group stage as we called it, to get to this position. So they've had a lot of time to really develop their teams, develop their teamwork, to try and, maybe overcome the other sides. Of course, these two wouldn't have faced in the group stages because of how the seedings and how the lineups have worked, but they could have done a bit of scouting using that group stage information. As we see, it's a 0-0 draw, but that's nothing to throw yourself at right now because just no information's been passed on. So it's a good thing for either team. So they're relying on all that previous information to try and fight it out and have that step ahead of each other, which is one of the fun things about these tournaments, but also one of the scary things because you never know if you're going to get it right straight away.
Also, an interesting thing worth noting is that despite both of these teams having to go through the qualifier stage, neither of them has lost a match yet. Canada making it through with 9 points, 3 wins. Chile making it through with 7, so that's 2 wins and a draw. So overall, both of these teams really doing a great job so far. And of course, both of them are just incredibly strong, deep rosters with great leading players as well as just a great supporting cast as well. We see, just looking at these names in this overall matchup, there's just so many good players on the screen right now.
Yeah, all these players are so good. Like Canada and Chile, not two teams that are known to VGC. Of course, you have Jean-Marc, who was very well known for his placements quite recently in regionals as they popped back over COVID, but also over lockdown, just over history with things like NPA and other World Cup style events. So that he has that experience here. Whereas Chile, they have a lot of top players. I can see a few names here. Because you have a lot of their players, especially in the LATAM region and America as well, and sometimes in Europe, they're sneaking out and getting those top finishes. I believe one of their captains got top 8 at the EUIC for Dialga, so it shows they have that creativity as well for Pokemon that aren't really seen too much, but can still be a threat if they're piloted by a good player with a good amount of skill.
It's also worth noting about Sebastián Parra is that he was the VCL Season 1 MVP. And like VCL was a large team league, 13 teams playing in the top division. So that's a really impressive accomplishment. Now looking at Matt Tidd, though, we have Milwaukee Regionals top 16. Of course, that's very recent. He played in the World Cup last year. And then a couple of other really impressive performances in years past at the Roanoke Regionals at that top 32 and at the NA Internats in 2008 with that 2018 with that top 64. Sebastián Parra, though, as I was mentioning, really doing quite well. It's in some of these online tournaments. We can see most recently he got top 32 in Victory Road's Road to Columbus, which I believe we casted together. So a nice little throwback there. And a top 16 in the Santiago Regionals as well.
Yeah, so both of them are showing they have a lot of position and namesake in their regions of the world. Of course, Matt Tidd with a lot of the North American regionals and internets, showing that you can have those finishes there. The top 32 and top 16, top 64 at tournaments that big aren't something to scoff at because, you're still getting points and you're still showing you can go positive at events. With Sebastián, doing top 16 and above in his local events as well. LATAM is a very condensed region. A lot of players will go to the same events at the same time. So you're going to, go against a lot of the top players from your area and you really have to fight out for that number 1 spot and trying to show who is the best. But again, we're showing the best. We see that Matt Tidd is going in with a team that is used by a lot of the best. Of course, yourself have used a variation of this team with the Zacian, Kyogre core, plus the usual support mons. And Sebastián coming up with something a bit more unorthodox with that Lowland Persian go alongside some of the more common Pokemon, but it is a really standout there of a Pokemon that was common a few seasons ago, but even a few formats ago, coming back, sticking its big old head in and saying, I can do some things that Incineroar can't. Let's see if it'll pull over the top.
Yeah, especially having access to the Landorus, you still maintain the access to Intimidate on Sebastián Parra's side. This team did get top 4 at the Taichung Regional, so a really good result already for this team. We'll see if Sebastián can get another little small result, another good win here. Matt Tids, though, the team, it is that standard Zacian Kyogre core that is extremely common, but it's really interesting to see both Whimsicott and Tornadus and Thundurus on this team because, we've seen a couple of older variations with Whimsicott. Paul Ruiz was using a variation with Whimsicott for a while and with a Zapdos over that Thundurus, but Thundurus has more recently become a very popular choice. Even more mixed sets where you'll run Defiant with 2 attacking moves and then something like Eerie Impulse or Taunt in the last 2 slots. Like, there's a lot of different ways that you can run Thundurus, and especially on a team with access to the Whimsicott, it's going to be really interesting to see just what the Thundurus is packing as far as movesets go.
Yeah, looking at the team composition, it could be either a supported version with that Prankster ability, or it could be Defiant, to kind of scare off any Incineroars that are going into the Zacian. But it doesn't matter in this matchup because Sebastián has that Persian over the Incineroar, so there's no Intimidates going off straight away. With how high the attack set is naturally on Thundurus, any foul plays coming out with the Dark Aura boost are going to do a lot of damage, and that could be very scary if we see a double up maybe, or maybe a max airstream plus the foul play just to guarantee some speed. So there's going to be a lot of reading there, but of course, naturally, the offensive pressure from that wild charge or a max electric, if it is gone for that move, will be threatening both these Pokemon. So both players have to kind of play it out of the pace. We do see the Dynamax come out from the Yveltal, so again, possibly going straight for that speed boost, but you can see maybe Whimsicott negating that with a Tailwind, so speed control is nothing to fear from for either of these players.
Well, we do have the Whimsicott going for a Protect here. It's going to be interesting to see what the Thundurus goes for, because it doesn't have a lot of HP. Fake Out goes into the Whimsicott, so let's see. Electro Web comes out for the Thundurus, getting a little bit of that speed control before dropping the Tailwind. I really like this from Matt. He's deciding to delay the Tailwind a little bit, and that's kind of the hallmark of a really good Whimsicott player. If you delay it by a turn or two, you have Tailwind for longer. So really being able to maximize the amount of speed control that he's going to have. Going for an Electro Web here from Matt Tidd is a really interesting way to start things off as well, because Thundurus usually built physically.
Yeah, Thundurus normally is built that physical attack to abuse its Defiant ability if it does catch any stat drops, mainly that Intimidates from Incineroars or Landorus off guard. But we see here that Matt Tidd is opting to go for a kind of like a 50-50, maybe a little bit different ratio to that, with the support to maybe be like, Whimsicott could get taunted or faked out turn 1. So you have that surprise factor of the Electro Web to get that speed control, so any things like an Yveltal or maybe any other flying type going for that max airstream, it's going to get hit super effectively, and it's also going to have that max airstream gone essentially because you're going from that -1 to neutral instead of neutral to +1. So it's a good way to control the speed and good way to kind of let your opponents know going into later turns and later games of a set, to be scared and be wary of what could come from that, making them be a bit more defensive, which means I have to go for a max darkness, which if you survive it, means you can get the Defiant boost. So a lot of pressure there from that one move, and I really like that Matt has opted to go for that and see if it does maybe affect the rest of the gameplay going on.
Well, Max Guard comes out from the Yveltal, trying to eat up one of these Dynamax turns from the Thundurus. Now, I will say, I would say that, like, Dynamax Thundurus, like, especially when you're looking at something like an Assault Vest and not a Life Orb, the Pokemon is not very scary after Dynamax is over, right? So being able to stall out a turn here with that Max Guard is already very useful for Sebastián.
Yeah, the usefulness of that is it's going to set the pace a lot better, and it's going to allow him to really work around it. But it still feels like the state of the game is anyone's game, because yes, there's more Dynamax turns on for Matt, but Yveltal's fairly bulky. You can run it with Life Orb, and its ability means that you can take a bit of its attack stat out and put it into its speed and its bulk. But this is a Thundurus, that he's facing down, so maybe that Persian will have a couple of tricks up its sleeve. Of course, it is known for its parting shot, but that is going to be bad into that Thundurus, so not the best in the world. We see that Moonblast coming out, going into Persian. It's not going to take that because its fur coat doesn't drop those special attacks, and it's just going to go down. So, Yveltal's kind of there by itself, could take his max airstream, but what would retaliation be from Sebastián to kind of, maybe get their own pace back, or maybe just try and go for a nice knockout?
Really, really impressive to see the Amoonguss pick up that KO onto the Persian there. Amoonguss obviously not a Pokemon that's trained to be particularly offensive. Ooh, Max Darkness goes in, but that may well have been the Assault Vest coming in clutch there. That's going to be a Defiant boost here for Matt as well. So getting that speed boost earlier on, of course, Tailwind's still up. Even if the Zacian were to come in, this Thundurus is by far faster than anything that Sebastián can throw out right now.
Yeah, having that speed and, again, having that pressure from being forced into the Max Darknesses because Airstreams aren't doing much with the amount of speed control on the side of the field means that Matt has the upper hand. He has that Defiant boost, and it is going to be scary now for whatever Pokemon comes in because it's got Max Airstreams for this Amoonguss, it's got Electric attacks for this Yveltal. You know, it's going to do a lot of damage to, like, Zacian if it does come in, especially if there's attack boosts. So nothing is going to be the end of the world, and nothing is going to be, you know, not the end of the world really for either of these players, but Matt having that upper hand with the sheer damage that the Thundurus can put out, and that is going to be very scary, whatever comes in. You know, Moongus might be able to redirect an electric type attack, but then it can't put things to sleep, so that's going to be even scarier on that behalf.
Something that is a little bit nice here for Sebastián as far as the information game goes is confirming that that is in fact an Assault Vest. Does mean that you're not worried about goggles or you're not worried about Lumberry on that Thundurus. So if the Amoonguss does manage to get a Spore off on it at some point in this set, it will be successful. Rage Powder, though, going to be the call here as Thundurus' Max Airstream does get negated somewhat by this Koba Berry. We'll see, though. It's already +2. Is that going to be enough to keep the Amoonguss alive? No, it's not.
Yeah, that Amoonguss just dropping, and, you know, yeah, it gets that redirection, maybe calling that Max Electric, like we said, but it isn't going to be doing much because now we see Pokemon getting even faster. Zacian probably didn't need that speed boost to outspeed the Yveltal, but it's just a little bit of a comfort pick to go for it. Heat Wave coming out, missing the Pokemon it should be hitting, but it does get the knockout on the Thundurus. Even if it didn't, had that chance to burn, but that's a whole another can of worms, a commentator's curse. We won't bless on our players here, and Yveltal, you know, it's a little less scared now because Zacian, you know, has a chance to maybe get a low roll on things, but we know what Zacian does with its attack stat. So, a bit scary. As we see, Matt is kind of hovering over his Pokemon. Whimsicott comes in quite safely because it can go for that charm it has on any physical attackers that come through, like the Zacian, which is not going to like that charm one bit, or it can just go for a Tailwind to guarantee the highest speed possible. You know, Matt kind of has this in the bag, but Sebastián could have some tricks up his sleeve to really scare the other side of the field.
Zacian on Matt's side is going to look to go after that Yveltal. Whimsicott does have access to so many options here. It's going to be a bit of an interesting situation to see, you know, does Matt decide to essentially lock down the game with something like a Charm, or does he decide, you know what, I want to try to maintain a little bit of this information. This is just game 1. I don't want to give away all my tricks in game number 1. And he is going to be interesting to see how he approaches this, with the Whimsicott going for Protect here initially. The opposing Yveltal also going for Protect. So this could be something that's very, very useful here for Sebastián, as the Behemoth Blade from Matt is going to accomplish absolutely nothing. But Sebastián's also goes into the Protect, so not really all that much happening on this turn.
Yeah, not much happening there. Players, you know, kind of thinking, okay, this is the threat that is going to be going down. So, you know, keep it going, of course. Getting rid of that Tailwind option means that speed ties are a no-go because Tailwind's gone. There's no double speed. But we do have that +1 speed on the Zacian. It could be a slower Zacian. A double Protect, I believe, from the Yveltal. And then the Tailwind coming out, so guaranteeing there is a bit of speed on that side. Just get rid of any cheeky counters. Zacian, give that Behemoth Blade. Doesn't get the knockout because it goes into Protect. And of course, now the Zacian Behemoth Blade will come out from the opposing Zacian. Let's try to get a counter for Behemoth Blade in these streams now. It goes into Matt Zacian, who takes it with a bare bit of skin at the end of it. And we're just going to see, you know, maybe a retaliation of the Behemoth Blade, or maybe just try and get rid of that Yveltal and letting the Kyogre in the back deal with the Zacian once it is in.
Yeah, this is I feel like I'm not entirely sure why Matt is opting to go for the Moonblast into the Zacian here. Maybe he's not convinced that the Yveltal will go down to a Moonblast, but opting to go for it this way instead. Sebastián has pulled himself back into this game quite substantially with that double Protect here. The Zacian will be able to remove the Yveltal if that's what it's targeting into, and it is. So at least it's just one Pokemon left, but we're still looking at a full HP Zacian here. I guess not quite, since Moonblast is going to tickle it just a tad. But overall, Sebastian is fighting real hard, trying to make his way out of this game with as much information or even potentially a win if he gets a little bit more lucky as he possibly can.
Yeah, if he gets a lot of information out on that luck out, he can go through it. Zacian going down means, that wasn't really many information because, Zacian pretty much revealed most of, like, what bulk it has, what moves to go for, but it's just nice to get that little satisfying KO at the end, and just knowing there's one Pokemon out of the way that could, throw a spanner in the works. Kyogre coming in, if it has that water spout, it's going to go for it. That's likely going to get a knockout or near enough knockout on the Zacian, and then, that'll be game, but then, we just saw it. However, there's no Origin Pulse and no chance of miss. So it does look like it's going into Matt's favor. But Sebastian, maybe just going, he's going to protect there, maybe see if he only has Water Spout, only has Origin Pulse, see what he's relying on. And then Whimsicott coming out here with that Moonblast, doing all it can, just saying, I'm being helpful without having that helping hand move whatsoever.
Well, there is a win condition here, Kana. All he has to do is get a quintuple protect. And doesn't look like Sebastian is going to be going for that. Opting to concede game number 1 there. Tid taking game number 1. And pretty comfortably. I mean, at the end of there, things got a little bit iffy with the double protect on the Yveltal. But overall, a pretty solid game there by Tid. And a fair bit of information was revealed on things like the Thundurus. So that's going to allow Sebastian Parra to potentially adjust in ways that will, be a little bit more beneficial in game number 2, because there wasn't a ton of information revealed from Sebastian's side. Nothing cheeky at the very least. It's like, okay, it's a Life Orb Kyogre, or a Life Orb Yveltal. That's, it's nice to know that, but it's not really anything that's going to be super, surprising and noteworthy for Matt.
There's nothing really noteworthy on that, like you said. But then Matt, on the other hand, has got all these moves he didn't reveal. He's shown his Zacian can live a Behemoth Blade naturally, but after that Charm, when Zacian will be at -1, it might not live it. Well, sorry, it might not take as much, and it will, it will stay around for longer. Could probably take some moves from the Yveltal as well. Can probably deal loads of damage out in retaliation, and that is just what is quite cool about that Whimsicott spread. As you see, Zacian and Regieleki have come in front of Zacian and Whimsicott, so we could see a Tailwind go off here and just get as much damage off as possible. Or that aforementioned Charm could be going into the Zacian just to make sure it's got as little damage going out as possible. And the other Zacian can kind of just set its own pace. So you see Matt, hovering over its moves and seeing what Whimsicott can do, what's the best role, because Whimsicott's one of those Pokemon where it suffers from 4 move syndrome, and even in the game it suffers from maybe like a 1 move syndrome where you want to go for 1 move, but you don't know what you'll do. So it's a bit of back and forth between what you go for, and Matt thinking that Tailwind's the best move to just outspeed that Regieleki going into the next turns of the game.
Access to Tailwind is going to be very, very interesting. Both players leading with some form of speed control. Of course, Electro Web with Regieleki is an option, but no protects coming out from either Zacian here. The Zacian on Matt's side going straight for that Behemoth Blade. Which one's it going into? The Regieleki. Is it enough to take it down? Not quite. So that's actually a reasonably bulky Regieleki, so that's worth noting. But here comes the Screech, as that's going to allow Matt's, it's going to allow Sebastian's Zacian to absolutely delete Matt's Zacian here, and that's a fantastic turn number 1 for the Chilean side.
Yeah, Sebastian, revealing a tech we saw in round 1 of this week's stream with, the Screech Regieleki. So where the Charm is on Matt's side, very good play there and very good hiding that tech until game 2, meaning that Matt has that pressure up now after it's a game 3 to think, okay, I've now got to play around a Screech, and without Taunt on his Whimsicott, he's got to really rely on those Charms and hope for maybe a low roll, because it's going to negate each other, neg 2, so it'll be a back and forth maybe of who gets it off first, who calls it right, who doesn't go for it, which is going to be a very scary mind game for both these players. But now coming in under this Tailwind is the Kyogre. It could just go for its good old Water Spout, and these 2 possible Sash is gone, and Zacian is a Zacian, might not take it quite as well.
Is going for the switch in here on the left-hand side. Protect coming out of the Zacian. Of course, stalling out turns of this Tailwind is going to be very, very important. The Regieleki has done its job. It's going to be eliminated from the field here, but Sebastian is going to feel pretty okay about what that thing accomplished. Trading a Zacian for a Regieleki pretty good for the Regieleki side, as long as it didn't burn its Dynamax or something. But allowing the Thundurus to get back in essentially for free is going to be quite nice for Matt. Being able to go for Airstream boosts to essentially make it so that when Tailwind is gone, it doesn't really matter anymore because the Kyogre is already going to be boosted on up. Yveltal coming in here for Sebastián. And this is going to be maybe the pivotal turn of this game. We've already seen Zacian protect once. It's probably not going to be able to protect again. So, does that go for a switch out? How much damage does Kyogre do? Lots and lots of questions remain to be answered here on this turn. A Max Yveltal could still be a little bit annoying to deal with, though, especially with the Thundurus prioritizing Airstreams.
Yeah, Maxi Veltal, with how bulky it can be, it is going to be scary to get rid of. Of course, having an electric type attack there, is going to do a lot of damage going into it. And the Water Spout as well is going to be doing loads of damage in this rain. But if there isn't an initial knockout, we know Thundurus can maybe do it with the damage you've seen it do earlier, but that was with the +2. So it is going to be, coming down to these rolls and these calcs here. As both Pokemon players are opting to Dynamax their Pokemon, one they're restricted, one their sub-legendaries, sorry. So, they got possibly their strongest Pokemon on the team going big, and that's going to be a back and forth that they're really going to have to fight for. Of course, Yveltal has those strong Dark type moves, but we've seen that the Thundurus can live it. Going for a Max Guard though, just wanting to conceal as much information for that turn as possible. Airstream going to that Mungus, who possibly can take it without any boosts, but then Kyogre, with how low HP it goes down to, might be able to cheese it a little bit with a high damage roll in this rain. We'll have to see, as this possibly a Water Spout does come out now.
Water Spout off the Life Orb Kyogre may very well be enough to take out this Amoonguss from half HP. We'll have to see as the attack goes on in. Amoonguss does fall. It's a big, big moment there. Sebastián's Max Guard effectively doing very little. I think the Max Guard there was to prevent Electric Terrain from going down, hoping maybe for a Spore onto one of those two Pokemon, but that is not going to be accomplished. We still have a turn of Tailwind, and of course we already have the boost stacking up on these Pokemon with the first Airstream going on in, and things are now looking very, very rough for Sebastián. It looked very nice for him at the end of that turn number 1, but everything's switching around so quickly momentum-wise in this game, as Matt looks primed to do a ton of damage on this turn.
Yeah, Matt has the opportunity to just click 2 of his strongest moves and just, call these Pokemon quits. Zacian, it may take the Water Spout on a sliver, even with his Life Orb, but then that's just going to be a nice bit of bait for whatever is in the back. The Yveltal, the combination of a possible electric type move and a Water Spout is going to be very scary into it. It's a strong move in the rain versus a move that's super effective against it. So that's going to be, if a Dark type Pokemon is supposed to be the scariest thing in the game, it's probably quivering itself at this electric move coming out. It goes into it, does about 50%, maybe a little bit more. But Kyogre's going to, say a nice hello with its big spout of water and probably get it to really low or knock it out. And, the pace of the game will be set there as the Water Spout does go through. It does make it go to a sliver that it does knock out, sorry. And then I believe both Pokemon have gone down from that, meaning that Matt has just pretty much just gone and taken this game and reversed a really good game state for Sebastián with that call at the start of the match, going for that Screech Behemoth Blade and going through any possible protectors that came out.
Great play there by Matt. Things looked really, really cool with that adjustment from Sebastián on that turn number 1, but Matt just had his game plan. Tailwind Water Spout sometimes is the answer, and just a really, really well played set there, putting Canada up 1-0 in the match against Chile.
Yeah, Canada getting that lead, on stream as well is really good, because then your other players are seeing that, your fans are seeing that. That's going to give them a morale to think, if we can do this on stream, we've learned what our opponents aren't too good against. Maybe it is a whole team thing. They're like, okay, we're not good against Kyogre teams. They can all build Kyogre. Or maybe they can think, okay, they've seen one Kyogre, let's all not build Kyogre. It's what these team tournaments can do, and that is going to be an amazing push forward. So I do believe Canada were just short of the mark last year, so maybe they can just show themselves up this year and be like, we're going to go for that top spot. We've got some of the good players. We're going to show our neighbors down south, we're a bit better than them.
Well, that's going to do it for the second match here. We do have 2 more matches coming our way today, so don't go anywhere. But before that, we are going to be going into Puerto Rico versus China next. So that's going to be crazy. You know, we have one of the absolute favorites, China, a team that, of course, has always been strong, but recently especially has been putting up some really, really impressive individual results. So they're definitely a team to watch, more so than in other years past, even though, you know, they've always been one that's an interesting team. I would definitely say that they are one of the favorites this time around. Maybe just like, maybe they will be able to show off that power in their first match of the year against Puerto Rico. But Puerto Rico, on the other side, that's been doing really, really well. Getting through that qualifier stage, a very, very small country, sure, but they have a large concentration of very, very good players that they've shown already in the first 3 weeks. So it's going to be a really, really cool match. Definitely don't miss it. And it'll be coming up right after this break.